Netflix recently dropped the trailer for their new Matilda musical movie, and while I'm a bit skeptical of it because movie musicals are often hit or miss, this gives us a good opportunity to go back and review the book in comparison to the original 1996 movie. So in this video, I'm going to be drawing some of the characters in the book based on textual evidence and imagination, and compare them to how they ended up looking in the finished film. One thing you may have noticed is that this book is illustrated. However, I want to rely more on the written descriptions, so I'll only be using illustrations for small reference like clothing, as their attire is never really described in the book, but that is all I'll be using them for. The rest is up to the writing. This video is going to be split into two parts, so part 1 will be all the main kids, while part 2 will be all of the adults. Yeah, and also, I am not a professional artist at all. This is just for fun, so don't take this too seriously. So with that being said, let's get started. So first we'll be starting off with Matilda. Matilda is 5.5, so I decided to draw her fairly small. She is also often described to have dark hair and large brown eyes. She also has a big love for reading and stories, so I decided to draw her holding the book Great Expectations by Charles Dickens, because she always seemed to show a love for his writing. In terms of personality, she's pretty sweet and polite, but she definitely has an attitude for keeping things fair and standing up for what's right. When her parents would yell at her and punish her, she felt it was only fair to punish them back, so she puts blonde hair dye in her death gel, puts glue in his hat, and even sneaks her friend's parrot up in the chimney so her parents suspect it to be a ghost. She's also highly intelligent. She's basically a child prodigy, which we can see in her first day of school, where she can do large multiplication like it's nothing. Later on, she ends up developing neurological powers, which allows her to move objects, which she uses to drive off the Trunchbull. I think they did a pretty good job portraying her in the movie. Her personality and desires are pretty much the same, but of course there are some main differences. For example, like I mentioned earlier, in the book she's 5.5, while in the movie she's 6.5. I also forgot to mention the movie takes place in the US, despite it being in an English setting, written by an English author. I don't know, but it doesn't really change too much of the story, so I guess I can't complain too much. Going back to her neurological powers, in the book, her powers are really only a secondary trait and is mainly only used for the final act, and it actually took a lot out of Matilda to use them. She even passes out at one point while practicing them. Roald Dahl intentionally made it like that because he wanted to focus more on her personality and message of good conquering evil. But in the movie, they kind of made her powers Matilda's whole personality, and it's not really too much of a challenge for her once she gets used to it. And yeah, here's the finished project of Matilda. I kind of went over her personality comparison to the movie, so let's compare the physical traits between them. Alright, so I have both of the Matildas pulled up here, and I think the movie got pretty darn close to her physical description. They have her dark hair, as we described earlier. She doesn't have the hair bow in the book, but I thought it was a cute addition to the movie. One key thing is, goodness, Matilda is said to have brown eyes, but Mara Wilson has hazel eyes. It's a common thing in book-to-movie adaptations. They don't always get the eyes right. It's kind of just a nitpicky critique, so there's not really anything they can do about it, besides maybe we're in context or something. But yeah, I think they got pretty darn close to what they could get. So yeah, let's move on to the next one. Next up, we have Lavender. Lavender is described as exceptionally small for her age, a skinny little nymph with deep brown eyes and dark hair cut in a fringe across her forehead. She's gusty and adventurous, similar to Matilda, which is kind of the whole reason they get along. She's known for being Matilda's bestie and putting the new in Trunchbull's water jug. So I decided to draw her pretty small and thin, and I tried to show her holding the new hidden in her hat behind her back, but you can't really see the new that well in the finished product, so I guess we'll just have to imagine it. I used the illustrations a bit for her clothing, but I realized they kind of contradicted her description a bit. For example, she's described as having dark hair, but in the illustrations she appears more blonde, which confused the heck out of me, but I decided to ignore it and rely more on the textual evidence. I also decided to make her hair a little messy, as she seems to enjoy getting her hands dirty and just having fun, so I'd imagine she wouldn't really pay much attention to her appearance. So I think we've gone over most of her description from the book, so let's compare her to the movie. She isn't entirely a main developed character, so I can't really bash on the creators that much. One thing that's primarily different is her newt prank. In the book, she actually thought of the plan pretty thoroughly and got the idea as soon as she volunteered to get Trunchbull's jug for her a day before the lesson. But in the movie, we see her collect the newt with her friends the day of, and gets the idea to put in the jug barely before Trunchbull comes in. So yeah, I think I did an okay job doing Lavender. I think I could have made her a little more skinny. I think the shoulders kind of ruined the illusion. But I am pretty happy with how her hair and eyes and face turned out. So yeah, here we have Lavender. So let's compare her physicality. Alright, so as you can tell, Lavender is pretty different compared to the book. For starters, they never really confirm nor deny her race in the book. In the illustrations, she does appear to be Caucasian, but, I can't go against any representation, so it's not really too big of a deal. Obviously, she doesn't have the fringe across her forehead. She does have the deep brown eyes, which is good. I know they described her as being like a skinny, exceptionally small for her age. I think they did okay with that. I mean, she's literally a kid, so I don't want to be too harsh on, not following the exact description of Lavender. But yeah, it's pretty different, but she's still Lavender at the end of the day, and that's what matters. Next, we have Hortensia. Hortensia was a bit of a challenge for me because she's not as heavily described as the other main characters, which I guess would make sense because she's not entirely a huge character, but it was still a challenge. Literally all we get of her is she's described as a rugged 10-year-old with a boil on her nose. That's it! But I mean, it could definitely be worse. So I cheated off her illustrations a little bit, but I also just kind of did my own thing with her. I drew her fairly bigger than the other two kids since she's much older, and I tried to give her sort of a rugged style with her hair and attire. I also drew her eating a bag of chips, or crisps I guess, because that's what she was doing when she was first introduced. I also decided to draw some scars and cuts on her because she mentioned that she was sent to Choki 6 times in her first term, which... What? Girl, how are you not dead? This is the one thing I'm kind of upset they cut out in the movie. They completely glossed over her backstory, and it's sad because she has some good tales to tell. She could only recall 2 stories of being sent to Choki, which she tells to Matilda and Lavender. The first time she poured a can of syrup into Trunchbull's chair, which resulted in her sticking to it, and it was beautiful, as she describes it. Unfortunately, she got snitched on and was sent to Choki twice in one day. The second time, she put itching powder in her gym knickers, which made a huge scene. She didn't actually get caught, but Trunchbull just assumed it was her, especially after the syrup incident, so she got 2 hours of Choki. In the musical, she was originally planned out to be a strong, fleshed-out character, and even had 2 musical numbers, Revolting Children and Now That She's Gone. Unfortunately, she ended up being a little too powerful, to the point where she ended up kind of outshining Matilda, and making her appear as passive, so the whole character was scrapped, and she was reverted to more of an ensemble character, which I'm assuming is the same route they're going to go with the musical movie, but I guess we'll find out. In comparison to the original movie, her personality is pretty much the same. She's a bit more sassy in the book, and is kind of doubtful of Matilda's abilities. I think if they had kept her backstory, she could have been a little more interesting, but I guess you can't make everything like the book. So yeah, I'm not sure if I'm entirely happy with how Hortensia turned out. I think with her hair shade and outfit, she kind of ended up looking like Mother Gothel. But I tried my best, so let's go ahead and compare her to the movie. Alright, I can't really say they got Hortensia wrong here because she isn't really heavily described in the book. She does appear to be around 10 years old. She's not exactly as rugged as I imagined her. Maybe if they just, messed up her hair a little bit, gave her some more, rugged clothes, I don't know. Obviously, she doesn't have the boil on her nose. I guess maybe they could have gotten her hair wrong, depending if they want the illustrations, but how in the world are you supposed to find that hair color in real life? So yeah, I can't really say they got anything wrong, but if they wanted to rely on these illustrations, I guess it's different. But yeah, I don't know. Alright, that is all the drawings I'll be doing today. Be sure to keep your eye out for part 2, where I'll be doing all the adults. Hopefully it should be out soon if I don't procrastinate, which that is very likely. Well, hopefully it should be out soon. Thank you guys so much for watching, and be sure to comment down below how you imagine these characters. Thanks so much for watching. Bye, guys!